lives. We have the opportunity to impact young men, to build future leaders, right? And that's not always going to be a scoreboard thing, right? But if you honestly, truly believe in our opportunity to impact these young men and help build, man, like those are our W's.
Welcome back to First Down presented by CoachTools. I'm your host, Justin Titchenell. Please feel free to leave this a 5-star review. It's super helpful for us as we continue to grow the podcast. And also be sure to subscribe so you never miss another episode. We have tons of amazing guests scheduled out and already have over 100 episodes recorded. So we're super excited about our growth. Today we have a special guest, Coach Daniel Day. Coach Day is the head football coach at Seton Hill University, which is also his alma mater. Seton Hill is a Division II program in the PSAC Conference, which is located right outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Coach Day and we spoke about the significance of having a long-term vision, making sacrifices, and leading by example. The conversation also underscored the significance of having character over talent and prioritizing character during recruitment. So I hope you enjoy today, and let's dive right in.
Yeah, I appreciate the invite and excited to talk with you today.
So Coach Day is just getting done with his 5th season at Seton Hill. And to get things started, Coach, can you just share with the audience about your background and how you've ultimately gotten involved in your current role?
Yeah, man. I don't know how much time you got, right? So I better keep it better keep it short, man. But I'm originally from just outside Youngstown, Ohio. And in that area, of the country, in honestly state of Ohio, like you're kind of born, even if football's not like in your family, you're kind of born just expected to, as a young male there, like football's going to be part of your life. Like it's pretty ingrained in the communities. And so I grew up, in just outside Youngstown and really had a pretty good high school career, which parlayed into, being able to be recruited to different colleges. And I was actually recruited here to Seton Hill back to start the football program. So I was a part of the first inaugural class back in 2005. And as a startup program, like had the opportunity to go from, we were 1-11 my first year when I was a freshman. And I was fortunate enough, man, to be a team captain of a 10-3 Division II playoff team. So I had an opportunity to take the program honestly from nothing to being able to build it into what it was in a pretty quick time. And then I was invited on staff as a graduate assistant. So I coached tight ends for 2 years, and man, coach career, bounced around a couple different places. Had an opportunity to really kind of first, major full-time job was in Rensselaer, Indiana, around some really, really good people. Corey Sanders, my head coach, and Mike LaFleur was our offensive coordinator. So I had some, guys that are doing really, really well in the profession that I had, as mentors. And with that, man, had an opportunity to be I took over that program. I was there for 4 years as an assistant, and at one point, youngest head coach in the country at 27 years old to take over Division II football program. So I was around really good people, great, circumstance. And, fast forward just a few years later, Seton Hill opened up, and being my alma mater was always a place that I wanted to, be able to come back to and to be able to transform this program and have the success I was able to as a player, wanted to bring that back as a coach.
Gotcha. And I know from experience, starting off as a player at a program that might be struggling or is brand new, I know that's really tough. So can you talk about that experience and how that's helped you in your coaching career now and some of the lessons you've learned along the way?
Yeah, absolutely, Josh. I've really been, for most of my career, I've been, I can't say it's by design, to be honest, but like it's been rebuilds. Like a lot of my career has been coming to programs that, we took over St. Joe. And again, I wasn't the head coach at first. I was with Corey Sanders, who's now at Pitt. But when we took over St. Joe, it just needed a jump start. We were able to accomplish back-to-back 8-win seasons. It was only the second time in over 100 years of football that had been able to be done.
Wow.
At one program, I took over a high school team that hadn't won a game in 3 years, and was able to have success is relative, I would say. When you're talking about rebuilds, right? And had a season that I'll never forget with that group and being able to win the first senior day in 6 years at that program. Then coming to Seton Hill, right? And the football program was 1-21 before we got, before we came in as a staff. And so just finished, our fifth year, fourth season, with the COVID year that we didn't play. And we had the best season we've had in 15 years of football. And I think the biggest aspect, man, if I could point to like one thing, I know it's such a used term in so many ways, but it's so much about your football culture. And I think that's what, we did kind of poorly here at Seton Hill was I don't feel like we did a great job of recruiting specifically to Seton Hill that would be guys that fit, football wise to be play in one of the most competitive conferences in the entire country, but also
Right.
fit the university. And that's been, such a big part is making sure the culture fits and you gotta, honestly, you gotta teach them how to compete before you can really win. You gotta teach how to just win, right? And then there's a difference to me on when you hit wins, there's a difference on learning how to win and how to be a winner, right? Anybody can win a game, but being a winner is absolutely a way of life. And that is how we carry ourselves day-to-day business classroom, every aspect. So I really think being intentional day to day to build your culture to support people, not just build football players, but to support people is how you can kind of get those turnarounds going.
Today's podcast is brought to you by CoachTools, the football player grading tool for coaches that's better and faster. Learn how to save time and increase your efficiency as a football coach at CoachToolsLLC.com.
And it's funny you bring that up because I was actually just talking with another coach about this at actually one of the guys at Brown, and he was talking about how important it is to have a vision for the program.
Mhm.
Because when the times get tough, when you're just getting started off, you need to know where you're going. Because if you don't know and you don't have that vision, you're not going to be able to make those and it's almost subconscious. You might not be able to make those decisions that are going to better suit you for the future. And
Sure.
one of my mentors, one of my coaching mentors, he always talked about having a long-term temporal perspective. And when you don't have that, it's tough to make those decisions. And as a player from from my time at Gettysburg, I can attest to the same thing. So anything else that you would bring up that, maybe when you were a player that you saw and that has helped you, in this big turnaround? Because when you do it once, maybe it's a coincidence, but
Yeah.
for you having done it a few times, there's definitely a method to the madness.
Yeah, yeah, and I think, I don't wanna just necessarily turn this into a recruiting pitch, right? But I do think there's a value to what we talk about here at Seton Hill or any program I've been a part of, and the pillars and how we build it. And our first pillar here, it's CPCW, and the first pillar here for us is character. And so when I look at us as a football program, when we were able to go from 1-10 to 10-3, right? And we were able to be a really, really strong competitive football team my senior year. We had good guys, honestly, that were sick of losing, like just sick of, kind of walking off the field on Saturdays. And so we made so many sacrifices going into my senior season to be great. And when I was first here, like I would tell you at Seton Hill, like as a player, we our weekend habits didn't match winning, right? Like it didn't matter if we won or lost, we had a good time, to be honest with you. But that got old, right? As you were, just hanging out and talking about losses, right? And like what we could have, should have done better. So that going into that senior year with a good group of guys that was able to really um hone in and make a lot of sacrifices. Like I would tell you, we as seniors kind of enforced and policed a dry season for us. And I think being able to make some of those sacrifices, right? Like I'd be a liar to sit here and tell you that there's not a single member of our program, right, that drank that season. But I will tell you, there was a strong commitment, right? That I would, 80% of our guys, maybe if not more, we went out as seniors to kind of police that to try to set the tone for how to do the right things, how to take care of your body. And I think that set us up for success, right? And as I mentioned earlier, right, I was able to come on staff as a graduate assistant right after. And as I please don't, I'm not saying that our coaches were awful, didn't know what they're doing, but I learned a really, really valuable lesson. after 10-3, second round of the playoffs, right? Justin, what do you think the conversation in the coach's office was about how we have to be better and win the next playoff game? What do you think the biggest word was coming out of the coach's office?
Yeah, championship.
That we wanted to take that next step, right? Like we've
Yeah.
got to be able to start to win at an even higher level. So we turned to talent. And honestly, our program wasn't built on just super talented dudes, man. Like we loved each other and played our asses off for, sorry, I don't know if I could say that, but
Yeah.
we played butts off, right? For everybody, beside you. And so we kind of became talent driven in our recruiting process years after that. And we brought in some guys with really, really questionable character. And, I didn't mention this before, right? But 10-3 as a senior, the very next season, we went 1-10. So you're talking about a
Wow.
program that was 10-3 and we went 1-10. And often, guys ask me, like, well, what happened? Man, we had Division I transfers, and I know the transfer portals made the landscape different in general, but at that point, if you're getting a Division I guy to come down to Division II, it's one of two things: he didn't play, right, and he just wants an opportunity to play, or he got kicked out of the institution. We got two guys that were all conference players in the MAC. So you can imagine if they're all conference players, it wasn't the latter. It wasn't that they weren't playing. We had some guys with some character question marks that when they got to this program kind of tore the foundation down. So if there's advice, man, I could give to anybody, and you had talked about that long-term vision, man, it is not easy to sit a starter, for a quarter because he comes late to a meeting, right? It's not easy to kind of set that example and set that tone with an All-American linebacker because you want to show those guys how important they are, but for your program and long term, like your message has to be consistent. The discipline has to be consistent for you to be able to sustain the ebbs and flows, no matter where you go and starting that rebuild. Like you're gonna have great moments, you're gonna have really, really challenging moments, right? And if you don't have something to stand on, you're not gonna sustain that, right? But we were able to really stand on, man, like we believe in what we do. We believe in the CPCW, our pillars, our culture. Even when we lose, like those are things we talk about. CPCW, teaching men, not just coaching football, but teaching men, and that's something we stand on.
Definitely. No, I 100% agree there, and I think going back to my playing days, like, that's something you need to do. You need to make sacrifice if you wanna win,
Mhm.
and I thought for any of the athletes out there watching, that's a huge thing that you need to be able to do, and just make those sacrifices for the greater good. If that's important to the team, which
Yep.
for any good team that should be.
Yep.
So, any last words, coach, you wanna share with the audience today?
No, I think it was awesome, man. Just to have an opportunity. I know, you host a lot of these, and to be able to jump on. I really appreciate Justin, you even thinking of us out here at Seton Hill and the opportunity to come in and talk with you and be able to be a part of this. I would, if there's anything I could say to any young coach out there, any coach in general, this is a tough profession, and we're so often judged by the scoreboard, right? The wins when you walk off that field on a Saturday afternoon. But I would tell you, man, anybody out there that's doing it, we have the opportunity to change lives. We have the opportunity to impact young men, to build future leaders, right? And that's not always going to be a scoreboard thing, right? But if you honestly, truly believe in our opportunity to impact these young men and help build, man, like those are our W's, right? Getting the text message 10 years down the road, like, coach, you helped change my life. Like that's awesome. And so don't make the short-term sacrifices or the short-term decisions to go win a game that could maybe not impact the lives of young men. Man, make those tough decisions and help educate.
Yeah, and I hear a lot of coaches talking about how coaching is a calling. It's not just a job. You're going to be putting in those tough hours, and just like what you were saying, you need to think about those things like how you're changing people's lives. So
Mhm.
thank you very much for being on today, Coach. Greatly appreciate you being on, and best of luck with recruiting the rest of the year.
Absolutely, man. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.